This is a video about design and design thinking tools and approaches. And it really outlines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 courses on design that I've taught over the recent years. And let's start with design science and outcome measures for design. We need a design Edison. Now, you know what Edison did. Edison himself wasn't much of a designer, wasn't much of an inventor, was a great salesman, and put together these coalitions of other inventions that made one big invention turn into a useful system that people got value from. Without those 200 other tinier, less impressive supporting inventions around any one big home run invention, it wouldn't have turned into a system. But the electric light bulb without new generators and transmission wires and transformers would have been dark, would not have lit up. So you needed 200 other inventions to make the light bulb work. And turned out that Edison was a genius at presentation and getting people excited and on board and getting those 200 other easier inventions done and organized to make one home run invention a home run. This is mass producing. He also invented something more important than any of his inventions, which was the automation of invention, the R&D lab he invented. And we need the same thing for design. We need a design lab that automates the upgrading of the design quality of everything in the Steve Jobs way, but that every company can do. Number 2, bases, markets, and evolution and dynamics of design. This is very interesting. Quality theory and practice, culture theory and practice, interface theory and practice, creation theory and practice, natural selection theory and practice. These are the intellectual bases of design science. Number 3, design frontiers and the redesign of extremely fundamental interfaces. This is things like inventing a publishing of readings industry, predicting the art prices at auctions, replacing prose, delivering leadership by alternative means, where you take the most elementary, mundane aspects of life and redesign them, radically upgrading them for the environment they are now in, instead of just taking something 8,000 years old and hobbling with it into the future. Number 4, design approaches and cultures. This is really admitting and studying the kind of ghetto culture that designers and design schools are inside of academia and colleges. The fact that designers spend the first 3 decades of their life unable to afford any of the designs that they see. The fact that you have a few home run designers constantly giving speeches at college, and then tens of thousands of design college grads who are barely able to make a living. That this is a culture of ghettoizing designers. And then here's the world's most valuable single corporation created by a design tyrant ruling over MBAs and engineers, Steve Jobs. So you have this paradox of a victim culture inculcated into designers in their design schools, and the world's most valuable company being made by design ruling over engineers and MBAs, who usually together rule over designers. So dealing with power and power dynamics and status ranking within and among professions is a major curriculum design colleges need to get on board with. Stop creating wimps. Number 5, historic scale design insights. This has to do with the anthropological and theological roots of great design experiences. Naming the needs, the realities, the existential dreads, and the dreams of people. And getting what's called trajectory changing design inventions. And this is what Steve Jobs was doing. Trajectory changing design inventions. And it's a very interesting. It's whether you go for disruption or not. And it's the kind of male chromosomes and personality that goes for disruption unless you have enough sex or enough wine to relax the male. So it's a sort of hormonal benefit that civilization gets from male hormones at work unleashing the fact that I don't want to please people, I want to amaze them. I don't want to fit in, I want to bust the mold. Historic scale design insights by naming the needs, the realities, the dreads, and the dreams of people with all honesty. Number 6, guides, theories, and topographies for designers. And this is really interesting. Designers, unfortunately, don't read books. And then when I had my students interview famous Japanese designers, the tragedy for my students was every single one of these guys, Ando, who didn't go to college, and Kawakita Jiro, and Kano, and Hinshitsu Kanri, and Total Quality, and the Japanese fashion people, all of them had gigantic personal libraries. And I asked if it was all right, and I had my students randomly go pick books to see if they had been actually read, if the pages were bent, and they all were. And they were just so upset. My students were very unhappy with this because many of them had gone into design because they didn't want to read books. And here, it wasn't just one or two, it was all of the top designers, in Japan at least, read lots of books and had huge personal libraries. The fact is that the more theories you have, the more parts of a situation, any situation, you notice. You notice parts of situations that people without those theories can't even notice. And then you have alternative actions you can take that other people without those theories can't even imagine. So you actually live in a bigger world than people with fewer theories. Also, if your theories are more abstract, your world is bigger than people who have concrete theories. And if you have more diverse theories, your world is bigger. The emergence, number 7, the emergence of system effects of design. Now, this is interesting. This is sort of meta design, where you design populations of things that interact to cause designs to emerge rather than a person designer being needed. This is the way nature designs, by the way. And the interesting thing is, how do you, let's take the video game industry, which has this tremendous design problem at its core. You get this initial home run, Mario Brothers or something, and then how do you come up with home run number 2? And you see Zygnea dying and withering on the vine because they can't come up with home run number 2. You can't increment your way into a video game type of design industry. You have to do second and third home runs. And you can automate the home runs. The problem is that they don't understand the dynamics of what makes their first game work. And that's because designers don't read books and software people don't read books. And so what you have to do, and I've done this for Nintendo and Capcom, it's you have to look at the 250 system effects, non-linear results of present actions that come back and amaze and surprise and dismay you, so that the environment of the second action in your plan takes place in a different environment made by the reactions to the first step in your plan. So your plans never work because they assume they were that step 1 to 10 we're all going to be in the same environment, but step 1 changes the environment that step 2 is in. So most people don't know how to do a nonlinear plan. I teach it in my courses, but most people are amazed because they've never seen it before. It's real simple, but it's just no one does it. But I have 256 system effects I got from product managers in 12 companies. And this is because I knew that Singe's list of 11 at MIT was childish, and that MIT has low standards like that, so they accept that childish stuff. And so I went out and asked real people how many nonlinear effects they actually find. And then I actually studied languages around the world, and you find out that half of the sayings in Turkish and in Chinese Half of the maxims or aphorisms in any language are about nonlinearities within one human mind operating, and the other half are about nonlinearities between various human beings, their minds operating. And so you can actually categorize these. You end up with 256 system effects. And then you go measure how many of these nonlinear surprises of present actions that are what distinguishes an engineer or a good manager from a bad one in the real world. How many of them are in these video games? And you discover maybe 6 out of 256. So 250 of them are missing. And then you discover what makes a flow point, an ecstatic flow point, in the Csikszentmihalyi sense, for a game player. And you discover that it's these nonlinear effects, just enough to stretch present gamer capabilities, but not enough to overwhelm the gamer. That creates the ecstatic flow of total involvement that players yearn for, that addict them to the game. And so you want to tune more and more of these 256 in there, in just the right combinations and amounts that stretch gamer capabilities without overwhelming them. Now, once you get this done, sets of 6 into 256, and you've got yourself 64 subsequent ecstatic flow game experiences. And you've automated the ability to hit home runs in game design. The design of mass workshop events and social interfaces. The problem is we have no outcome measures for the amount of socialness in a current group. When you do, now I have an outcome measure called social index level. When I do measure it, I find that average corporations operate at a social indexing level of 3%. Boy Scout troops operate at a level of 7%, and high performance teams operate at a level above 21 or 22%. And so the degree that we are social, actually knowing the interests, needs, capabilities, and 4 other things of other people and act on those, is really extremely low. And so there's an enormous horizon for productivity improvement by being more social. However, Facebook, it turns out, doesn't impact social indexing levels at all. 0. It doesn't make people more social. And you would expect that. You have an Asperger's syndrome guy who treats other people like dirt, and he designs a social interface, and it's going to make people more social? No, of course not. How do you put people together so that deep, intimate, emotive internals of the people meet, not just the external shells of the people meet? That takes genius, doesn't it? That's what the arts and the movie industry is all about, getting you to meet the internals of somebody. Now, designing mass workshop events where people do this, this is how you create new cultures or change bad old cultures. And creating social interfaces in meetings, groups, and discussions where these internals of people meet, not just the externals. Can be done, but it has to be taught, and you have to know how to design them. Number 8, design of information interfaces in informative video. If you close your eyes and listen to any current video in the world, you'll find out you get 95% of the meaning, because it's all in the oral verb stream, word stream. It's not in the video. The video is not being used to transmit information at all. And so we call it video, but it's just decorative stuff. And you notice this all the time. You see some big announcer with a beautiful voice saying, at first there was just rock, picture of rock. And then there was water on the rock, picture of oceans. And then there were living creatures in the oceans, picture of fish. And then some of these people creatures crawled out on the land, picture of creature crawling on the land. I knew all that. I knew what a rock was without that photo. And so 99% of the video part of the video is just stock stuff, filler for decoration. We can do better than that. Turns out there are 64 kinds of information that video is much more powerful than prose or words for conveying. Once you focus on those kinds of information, then you can make videos that are informative instead of just decorative. Design of software and competitive products. This is wrapping your application around your competitors' applications. This is selling one of yours for every one of theirs they sell. This is product ecosystems where they created the niche that you then sell into. And that's just the evolution of such niches, so that you anticipate the future niches around your niche, and then you niche on those niches. In other words, you can automate the growth of sales of your own software by designing it for an ecosystem set of functions. Um, although they don't teach this at Carnegie Mellon and MIT and Stanford. Design of relations and cultures. Relationships and cultures are both everything we are and invisible. So they have two powers. They have 9 powers, but 2 of their most obvious powers are their vastness and their invisibility. And we don't know what our own relationships are. We enact them, we have them through automatic routines, but we're not even aware what most of those automatic routines are. And we're certainly not aware of what automatic routines and kinds of relationships we automatically don't do, because we've never done them before, we're afraid of them or what have you, and we just don't have routines for them. And so designing relations and cultures is a matter of, and relations and cultures are simply shared practiced routines. And therefore, to build a new self, a new culture, a new high performance, you just have to share the practice of some new routines together. And so you have to design what those new routines are. And you have to design interrelations with existing routines and new routines. Now, this is a whole little design thing, and it's absolutely missing from Fabrica, from Central St. Martin, from Parsons. I couldn't find a single piece of any course dealing with it. It's amazing. And then creating new cultures is vital when you've got sick, weak, or dysfunctional cultures like Harvard grads on Wall Street. Design of web communities and interactions. Now, this is the little boy's Asperger's male idea of sociality again, in that because they don't have outcome measures of the socialness of a group of people and the way they are socializing, you can get these mentally deficient Asperger's guys who don't even have good relations with their own wives and kids, making software that's supposed to be social. And these stupid investors investing in it. Watch Facebook disappear over the next 2 years, just like MySpace did. So, what is a community, and what reacts to what in a community? That's the outcome measures. You've got to have them. I've got them, and they work. 2 of them. One of them is imbalances among social processes that all social entities have. And the other one is social indexing level, the degree to which, for 7 aspects of humans, needs, interests, capabilities, and 4 others, we actually know them for other people around us, and we enact actions based on them. Then number 10 or so, or 15 or so, design of better than street fashions and logos. There's a general problem in academia of researching only how people now do things, and not researching how people might better do things. And Roger Martin at the University of Toronto for management made a couple of speeches 5-6 years ago, which said that economics has turned us into a bunch of wimps by making us study how the world works instead of studying how the world might work better. And that actually we shouldn't have based management on economics at all. That was an American mistake to up the status of business school professors in colleges. And we should have based economics as a design science rather than as an economic science. And as a design science, you don't want to be inductive. You want to be deductive and abductive too. And that means that you don't want to take what you see on the street, turn it into a fashion. You want to imagine the abstract dimensions of how people have fashioned something and interpret and extrapolate new dimensions, and then invent something that fits that, and then try it out on the street, see whether you can change the street's view of what's great. This is what Jobs was doing. And finally, the aesthetics of leadership. The fact that leaders don't actually lead people very far, and or in any particular coherent direction. And they don't actually deliver much directedness all over massive workforces. So very little leading is actually being done. A lot of bandying about of the word is being done. But in those few people who do go in a direction and who do deliver directedness to massive workforces, in those few people who are actually leading, and there are very few of them, there's a beauty element. There's an aesthetics to getting people to move. It's like making this goal a beautiful vision or woman in front of people gets people moving in that direction. And people won't move toward ugliness. And unfortunately, the economic-oriented leaders that we have are only able to portray what I would call, or any normal human being would call, ugly goals. So it's the leaders who can control great goals. And it's, goals that are real and not just bandying about our people are our most important asset. I get paid $4 million and you get paid $4 for the same work. It's not that kind of cynical economic leadership that the business schools generate. It's someone who's able to be an artist and paint theologic and anthropologic depths of the human condition that are resolved by how we are together.